go. Just in case anyone would like to follow up, I suspect many of you will want to follow up as we stitch our region and our movement more thoroughly together as we get ready for the Reconstructionist Convention that is going to be next month in our area. It is not too late to register. And as we build community in a way that this digital era, though none of us would have wanted a global pandemic to force us to become Zoom adept, the reality is we can connect more easily than we ever have before. And so it is an honor to welcome colleague and new friend, Rabbi Michael Hess-Weber from the Columbia Jewish Congregation, our sister to the north, who will be joining us for a very casual and very beautiful Erev Shabbat. I just want to note this is a new thing this season, A, because we are joined, and B, because if you look outside the window, depending, if you're in the DMV and you look to the west, you will see some amazing late dusk sunset colors. And that is entirely new because this whole season, doing this online, it's been the coldest, darkest months, and it's been long dark by 6 p.m. And just to take note, a week from now, how much lighter it will be. And a week after that, how much lighter. And a week after that, how much routinely warmer it will be so that days like today will not be an aberration. In other words, the trend line is pointing in the right direction. And that is my blessing for this Shabbos. May all our trend lines point in the right direction. I believe we are beginning with Yedid Nefesh.
Yeah, we will begin to sing, but I just wanted to say that I'm so happy to be here, so happy to sing with you and to pray with you for a little while and to bring Shabbat in together. We turn to page 7 in our prayer book. Yedid nefesh av harachama meshoch avdecha eretzonecha yarutz avdecha kamo ayam yishtachaveh el mul hadarecha te'erav lo yedidutecha minofet sufechotam.
Thank you. Page 21. So look back a week if you can remember when it was already pitch black at 6 p.m. and where we were in early February and when Omicron was coming down, but not as fast as it has in the last 7 days, and all the other different places that we were in a week ago. The week in review as we flip through the pages of Kabbalat Shabbat. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, Nariya letzur yishenu, Nekadma fanav betodah, Bizmirot nariya lo. Ki el gadol Adonai umelech b'kol shabbat u'mechesed asher lo yamru asavu yibeshu Page 23, the last three lines. Arba'im shana akut bedor va'omar am to'e levavhen vehem lo yadu drachai asher nishbati be'api im yavo'un el menuchati. Page 31, as we skip around a little bit, fast forward from last Motzei Shabbat all the way into the third day of the week. The Chatima, the conclusion of the third of these 7 Psalms to correspond to the 7 days of the week, the well-known line, Or zarua latzadik, light is hidden for the righteous, ul yishrei lev simcha, and for the straight of heart, there is joy. Straight, obviously not in the current context. No matter your orientation, there is joy. But straight in the sense of directed, straight in the sense of sustained, because it's got energy and momentum behind it. It's a really interesting expression, Yishrei Lev, this idea of a heart that has momentum, a heart that has direction. Among many themes today, this is the Shabbat prior to, well, a whole lot of things, the middle of February, the Super Bowl, but I'm particularly intrigued by this rather ridiculous modern holiday of Valentine's Day, which of course itself has roots in some challenging pieces of medieval Christendom history as Saint Valentine's Day. But this notion of the heart having been co-opted by the greeting card industry, we actually have something to say about heart. And for us, love is expressed as righteousness. For us, when we talk about the heart, it's not this little cutout in red or orange. It is about having straightness, direction, and momentum. The heart in action. A blessing for all of us on the week of Valentine's Day and always, to make sure that our hearts are directed, steadfast, as our poet Luther beautifully reminds us. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai v'hodu lezecher kodsho.
Lecha Dodi. We will sing it together, this pillar of our Shabbat, our Kabbalat Shabbat service. And we sing Lecha Dodi as we welcome the Shabbat bride. And so many times in my Jewish life, I've paused for a moment and I've said, wait a second, who is this Shabbat bride that we speak of? Why is Shabbat called the Shabbat bride? And some of you may know, but I bring one teaching just to share with you as we enter into a Lecha Dodi space tonight. So there's this Kabbalist teaching that in the beginning of creation, every day of the week, except for the seventh day, except for Shabbat, had a partner. So day 1 and day 4 were partnered because they are linked in the formation of light and in the creation of the sun and the stars. Days 2 and 5 are linked in the formation of water and then the creation of the sea creatures that live inside the water. And then days 3 and 6 are linked in the creation of earth and the creation of the vegetation that grows from the earth. And only Shabbat, the seventh day of creation, was without a partner. Shabbat was lonely. And so Shabbat went to God and said, I'm lonely, God. I want a partner too. And so God gave Shabbat the Jewish people, us. So each Shabbat, we greet the Shabbat bride, just as one might greet their beloved underneath a wedding chuppah. And so in this way, Lecha Dodi becomes a love song between us and our most sacred day of rest, Shabbat. So join me on page 41 and we'll sing together. I wonder if anyone has a favorite verse of Lecha Dodi that you want to make sure we sing tonight. Does anyone have a favorite? Well, I'll just sing through the ones that I've heard that you sing through most normally. And I invite you to look through Lecha Dodi sometime over Shabbat and see if there is a verse that's particularly resonating with you this week. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabel la la lecha lecha dodi likrat kala panei Shabbat nekabel Shahamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem ol tiferet v'liti la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabel la la lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi makor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabel la la lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabela Hitoreri Kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi kavod Adonai alayich migla la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabel la la lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabela Yamin usmol tifrotzi v'et Adonai ta'aritzi al yad ish ben parzi v'nismecha v'nagila la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabel la la lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nekabela Bo'oi v'shalom ateret ba'ala Gam b'simcha uv'sohola toch emunei am segula Boicha la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabel la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela. I could see you bouncing. I could feel you singing, even through Zoom and our cyberspace connection. It was strong. Shall I continue with some words of Torah? I've got the rabbinic go ahead. So I was just ordained in May, so freshly minted. And for my 5 years of rabbinical school, I was working at a place called Whole Community Inclusion, which is an organization advocating for Jewish spaces that are accessible and vibrant for people of all abilities. And in that work, and in the work of being a rabbi, and in the work of being a conscientious Jewish person and a human being, February has become a really special month, as I think you know, because February is Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month. And it is no coincidence this year, maybe it's a holy coincidence, that we spend almost every Shabbat in this month of February reading Parshiot outlining the building and sanctifying of the Mishkan, the sanctuary space where God dwells amongst us. So last week and this week, God gives us via Moses a lot of intricate instructions about how to build the Mishkan and how the sanctuary will work, what the priests need to do to care for the sanctuary. So last week, the instructions were all about the structure and its decor, what's going inside. And this week in Parshat Tetzaveh, those instructions continue, but they shift a little bit toward the priests, telling us how the priests should dress and how they should conduct themselves, how they should fulfill offerings and sacrifices. Lots of rules. There's a lot of attention to detail, down to the tiniest pomegranate on the hem of the priestly tunic. A lot of detail. And while it is clear that the priests run the show when it comes to maintaining the purity, the holiness of the Mishkan, it is really a communal endeavor to get this sanctuary built. God tells Moses to call upon Kol Chochmei Lev, all who are skillful, or another translation might be all who are wise of heart, which this calls back to Or Zarua, Fred, to do the work of creating this sacred space together. So this is not a one-person job. The community as a whole is called upon, is obligated to do this work of creating sanctuary. And when we read these instructions from God about measurements and gold and ringlets and gemstones and tassels, and I always imagined that the work was done once, that the community worked really hard. They built the Mishkan and then it was finished. But this week, as I read Parshat Tetzaveh, something new occurred to me, that the project of building the sanctuary was actually ongoing. Because remember, the Mishkan was God's dwelling place amongst us, the Israelites, as we wandered through the desert toward the promised land. So we were wandering, we were moving, and as we moved, the sanctuary was moving too. So the Mishkan wasn't just built once, poof, it's done. Instead, it was built, it was taken down. It was built again, it was taken down over and over and over again. So as we wandered in the desert, we carried the Mishkan with us. Sometimes the Mishkan was set up and sometimes we were carrying it on our shoulders, right? We were protecting it. We were guarding all the sacred bits that went inside the menorah, the Ark of the Covenant. We were holding it through all these changing landscapes. So life for the Israelites, for our Israelite ancestors, was no doubt really hard, but they stayed really committed to the project of sanctuary through their whole journey. And I just think of the muscle it took, the number of hands that it took, the number of minds that it took to build and carry this holy space through the desert. And that hard work and responsibility of creating divine space, the work of creating true sanctuary, is not done. We have inherited this responsibility from our ancestors. It is foundational to who we are as a holy community, as a Kehillah Kedosha. So perhaps now the Mishkan is not, our Mishkan is not made of beams of acacia wood or golden ringlets or dolphin skin. Instead, the Mishkan that we carry on our shoulders and in our hands is one of spirit and of belonging and inclusion. And when we build and care for this Mishkan, God truly does come and dwell in our midst. So this Shabbat, Parshat Tetzaveh invites us to think about how we ensure that we are continually working to create sacred space that allows all of God's beautiful and varied people to access sanctuary. How do we, as a full community, ensure that we carry on the intricate and critical work that our ancestors started long, long, long ago? And so I'd like to close with the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai mishnei habriot. Thank you, Spirit of Life, for making your creations so beautiful and so varied. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom and Yasher Koach and Amen, Amen, Amen. Okay. Page 53, letting this Rabbi Michael's beautiful teaching sort of settle in us, a reminder about the holy place that our ancestors put so much effort into, as described in Parshat Tetzaveh, as the famous ending line of this, the last of the Psalms for Kabbalat Shabbat, says, Levetcha na'ava kodesh, for your house, which is a holy sanctuary. It is only a holy sanctuary if it is an inclusive sanctuary. Adonai malach geut lavesh, lavesh Adonai oz hitazar, af tikon tevel bal timot. Nachon kisecha me'az me'lamata, nasu narot Adonai, nasu narot kolam, yisu narot achyam. Mikolot ma'im rabim, adirim yishpereyam, adir b'marom Adonai, edotecha ne'emnu ma'od, levetcha na'ava kodesh, Adonai. Le'orech yamim. We gather on Friday nights mostly for just this Kabbalat Shabbat, to enter together. But once we have a minyan, page 131 is the chance to remember. And since we are at least 10 of us, and many of us are carrying memories with us, I want to invite anyone who is in mourning or commemorating a yahrzeit who would like to say the names aloud or put the names in the chat, to feel free to do so, and to feel free to rise as may be your custom. Page 131. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael ba'gala u'vizran man kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. To Judy and your Michael, and to CJC's Michael, and to all others who are remembering tonight. Hamakom Yenechem Etchem and Zichronam Livracha. So we're in the home stretch of a short, beautiful entry into Shabbos, and I think we have just enough time to turn back to page 11. I hope people are reading Rabbi Rachel's musings from the Holy Land, and that she made it to Yerushalayim for the first time this trip and got to catch up with Idan. And so we think of those good old days in good old places. Yerushalayim is usually thought of in somehow opposition to Tel Aviv, but it was Tel Aviv where Chaim Nachman Bialik, the author of this beautiful poem and so much else, resided. And it's the Tel Avivi model that is much more the kind of community that Rachel and Jonathan have connected with, a Masorti community in Zichron, a place that is thoughtful and progressive and pluralistic and loves Judaism, but also takes it in a more modern way. And Bialik was really one of the pioneers of that. So in honor of Rachel, and in honor of our connection with the Holy Land, and in honor of the fact that for the first time in a long time, when we gathered, there was still light outside, which is exactly the opening line. This is the moment when the sun itself is no longer seen on the treetops. It is now dusk, and we come and welcome the Sabbath Queen. Achama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka, bohu v'netze likrat Shabbat hamalka, hine hi yoredet hakdosha habrucha, ve'im hamalachim tzva shalom u'menucha. Bohi, bohi, hamalka, bohi, bohi, hakala. Shalom aleichem, malachei ha-shalom. So shall we make Kiddush and wish each other a good Shabbos? Michael, are you able and ready?
I'm able and ready, although I just realized that I don't have my Kiddush cup in front of me. So could I be the voice of the kahal? Like, could everybody else's Kiddush cups count as my Kiddush cup? Can I borrow? Okay, I see some Kiddush cups on screen.
There we go.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Phyllis, yours is front and center. Come on, thanks.
Is your custom to Edadat Shalom to do the whole Kiddush?
109 and 119. Bring it on.
Okay, great. Vayhi erev vayhi boker yom hashishi, vaychulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam, v'yachol Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי חבריי.
לחיים!
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו. בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנהילנו. זיכרון למעשה בראשית. כי הוא יום תחילה במקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי אלינו קראת, ואותנו קידשת, לעבודתך ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen.
Amen.
L'chaim and good Shabbos, everyone. And feel free to unmute and greet and make a little commitment to connect more within our movement, within our region. Columbia and Laurel, they're not so far away, and we should be visiting each other and doing more of this and building community within and without. Thank you so much, Rabbi Michael, and Dashcham to the whole CJC community. And good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi Michael.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Michael and Rabbi Fred.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Awesome. So, okay, so Hannah, Phyllis, thank you. Here we go. Yes.